Howdy, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Being on the Scene. We decided to do live again because there's just been so much that's going on this week. And, I could always prep it or we can just rip it off the dome. So that's what we're going to do this go around. Granted, last time when we did live, other news broke and my comments weren't working. So I got comments up. Hopefully, I'll be able to see everything as it comes up, but who knows? So let's get into the content. First off, we're going to start with BYU football with their transfer portal. There's been some players going in, some players coming out. It's been 60-40 as far as who's been leaving and who's been coming in. As far as the players that came in, you got Justin Kirkland, a junior defensive lineman from Oklahoma State. And then you have Bear Bachmeier, a freshman quarterback from Stanford. Both of them transferred in. As far as players that transferred out, you have Joshua Singh, a redshirt junior defensive lineman. He transferred to Vanderbilt. Harrison Taggart, a redshirt sophomore linebacker. He transferred to California. And Carson Suesue, a freshman tight end, transferred to Oklahoma State. So I find it funny that you got Kirkland coming in, Suesue out. Now, for Utah football, their transfers, it's been 50-50 as far as the new people since the last time we spoke. So the people who have left have been David Washington, a freshman wide receiver. He transferred to Purdue. Landon King, a redshirt junior tight end, which honestly, I thought that this year would have been his year to shine, given all of the changes within the program. But he ultimately transferred to Duke. And for those of you who watched the Locked on Utes episode that I was a guest on, called it. But then for the players that are coming in, you have Tobias Merriweather. He is a junior wide receiver from Cal, which he's one of the top wide receivers in the transfer portal this go around. So fantastic that Utah is able to land that type of talent. And then somebody that might not have been on a lot of people's radars is Bryce Duke, who is a junior running back from Old Dominion. I know that that's not necessarily a school that is on most people's radars, but you know what? We're having fun. So, as far as Utah State, there isn't a lot going on there. They did lose Grayson Brosseau, a freshman tight end, to Oklahoma State. So, that's pretty much everything transfer portal wise as far as those universities for football. Now, for basketball, for BYU, you ended up having Elijah Crawford, freshman point guard, go from the Cougars to the University of Illinois, Chicago. But BYU got 2 4-star transfers. The biggest one so far has been Rob Wright III from Baylor. He is most likely going to transform this program. Granted, you have some really young talent, the number one guy from his graduating class, AJ DeBonsa. But Rob Wright III, he'll be paired very well with DeBonsa. So BYU landed a great player there. But then they also received Kennard Davis, a sophomore small forward from Southern Illinois, who is also a 4-star recruit. Now, for Utah's basketball program, if you looked at the list, you would just say that is in one door, out the other, just because there are so many names on this list. Just in the order that I typed it in, you have James Okonkwo, a senior power forward, transferring from Akron to Utah. Then you have Jake Wallen, who is a sophomore power forward, who transferred from Utah to Clemson. Then you have Elijah Moore, a freshman shooting guard, transfer from Syracuse to Utah, which he is a guy that should be on your radar. Very swift, very talented. Utah got very lucky landing him. Ezra Asar, a junior power forward, he transferred from Utah to USC, which, in my opinion, I think is a great move for him. He'll get a lot of playing time over there. Then you have Ja'Kai Howard, a freshman small forward from Auburn to Utah. So having a player coming from arguably the best or one of the best programs in the country to Utah, it's showing what Alex Jensen can develop here in the University of Utah's program. Then you have Seydou Traore, sophomore guard from Iowa. Don McHenry, a senior shooting guard from Western Kentucky. And then his teammate, Babacar Faye, a senior power forward, again, also from Western Kentucky. Utah, they have a lot of guys coming in, a lot of guys coming out, but that was anticipated with Alex Jensen taking over this program. So I honestly have no idea what to expect from the Runnin Utes this year, but all I know is that college basketball fans should be excited to see what this change is, and I can tell you I am one of them. As far as Utah State, uh, Dayton Albury, he's still in the portal, hasn't made a decision on where he's going yet, but the Aggies did land MJ Collins, a junior shooting guard from Vanderbilt. So getting an SEC talent into your WAC program, A+. Now, moving on to Real Salt Lake, they've made some major acquisitions over the last week or two, getting Willie Aganda and Johnny Russell from Sporting Kansas City. Neither one of them were a part of their May 3rd game against the Vancouver Whitecaps, which Real Salt Lake ended up losing 2-1. But these guys should make RSL fans excited and, have those fans recognizing that the organization and ownership, they are trying to make moves to make RSL a competitive organization once again. Now, they're kind of struggling doing that at the moment, but when you only have Diego Luna as your main scorer, you got to make some moves. Now, the Utah Royals, like RSL, they are struggling to find their footing. They're not really finding wins here and there. And actually, the Royals have only won one game this year, but they're still managing to make headlines. And that headline is with KK Ream. She is one of the forwards for the Utah Royals, and she actually made NWSL history, becoming the youngest player to start in the league at just 15 years old. Now, could you imagine being a professional athlete at the age of 15? I know when I was 15, I would not want to be recognized for anything I was doing. But KK Ream, she is zoned in, she is focused, and she made an impact on the field. And funny enough, the record that was previous to her is actually held by her current teammate, Ali Sentinor, at 20 years old. So there was a huge gap between KK Ream and Sentinor as far as what those records were. Now, will we see this record be broken again? I would be terrified if I saw that again, especially so soon. Just because, again, 15-year-old, you're looking at a sophomore in high school, and I can't imagine. Like, I can maybe see it in Europe, but in the United States, I was caught off guard. Now, for the next segment, we got the Salt Lake Bees. Over the last week, the Bees have gone 4-1, which is great for them. They should have played 6 games, but their Sunday game was rained out. But that brings their record to 15-18, putting them at 4th of 5 places in the Pacific Coast League West. Now, even though you are seeing that, and 4th out of 5 isn't great, 3 games under 500 isn't great either. But to put it into perspective, their current record puts the Bees 2.5 games out from being in 2nd place. So it's not that bad. As far as first place goes, they're about 8.5 games out from first place, but it's only May. There's still so many games left to be played. So when you see streaks like this going 4-1, that is a great sign for the Salt Lake Bees. Now, for the Major 4 sports, starting with the Utah Jazz, they rewarded their head coach, Will Hardy, with a multi-year extension lasting till the 2030-2031 season. He has done so many great things, and a lot of people will immediately point to, he hasn't won a lot of games. They haven't gone over 500. Yes, we all know this. But that was not the goal with this organization when they brought in Will Hardy. The goal is develop young talent, figure out their strengths, figure out their weaknesses, and we will build from there. And Will Hardy has done exactly that. When you look at guys like Keontae George, someone who had never played point guard in his professional career or collegiate career, forcing him to play a position he had never played before and doing a decent job. I don't want to say he was great. I don't want to say he was phenomenal, because you could tell that he was somewhat uncomfortable at times. But then you bring in a guy like Isaiah Collier, who was put in his uncomfortable zone when he was at USC, being forced to be more of a scoring guard rather than a pass first guard, which he stated when he was drafted he wants to go back to that type of play. So when he came to the Utah Jazz and you see him being a pass first guard and moving Keontae George over to being a shooter, you saw a tremendous amount of growth from both of those players. You see Bryce Sensabaugh being an offensive weapon when needed, Kyle Filipowski being a diamond in the rough, being a second round draft pick. Cody Williams, he's still rough around the edges, but you can definitely see where the raw talent can be extended. But you can definitely tell there is still a lot more work, and he's definitely a project. And then Taylor Hendricks, even though you only got about 2 or 3 games out of him this year, you saw that there was a massive jump in the offseason, and he was willing, or not willing, he is going to take that leap. But now with him having that catastrophic injury, breaking his leg, I'm really curious to see how well he can play coming back from said injury. But, only time will tell. But that roster is something that's going to need to be evaluated very soon because the NBA draft lottery is going to be right around the corner. It is on Monday, May 12th. And every Jazz fan is sweating. They're overly excited, overly worried, or they're just shrugging their shoulders saying the Jazz are unlucky, most likely going to get the worst possible pick. My brain is preparing for the worst, hoping for the best. So that would most likely be the 5th overall pick being the worst, 1st overall pick being the best. There's some great names that are being thrown around. Of course, the number 1 being Cooper Flagg. And you got Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, VJ Edgecombe. Then you got Trey Johnson, Conkaneppel, Derek Queen. You got some great guys off the first 10 picks. And honestly, I think that those guys are all going to be franchise changing players, whether they are all stars, stars for their team, consistent starters. I think that there's a lot of talent at the front end of this draft. But the Utah Jazz, they have the best odds for the number 1 pick. They are already guaranteed the 21st pick, and along with their 2 second-round picks. So me personally, if I were the Utah Jazz, I would be making calls to see if there is a possibility to pair the 2 second-round picks and their 21st pick to potentially move up a tad bit more. So then you can try and get as much talent out of this draft as possible. Now, that may mean that they move a player like, say, a John Collins or a Colin Sexton. But the Jazz are trying to capitalize on young talent. And if they can get as much of that from this draft as possible, go for it. Now, speaking of draft lotteries, the Utah Hockey Club, they had theirs on May 5th, which was this past Monday. And they went in with the 14th best odds in the draft, which with the first drawing, the highest pick that they could have had was the 4th overall pick, which at that time they had a 3.1% chance of moving up that 10 spots because with that NHL platform, the new format, they could only move up a maximum of 10 spots from wherever they are currently positioned. But Utah, they did not get the luck in the first drawing, but the New York Islanders did, who they don't even have a GM. They had their scout, one of their scouts, they're representing the team, and they moved up a total of 9 spots because they were at the number 10 position, which meant that they had a 3.5% chance of making that large of a leap. Now, there was a second drawing, which that second drawing was for the 2nd overall pick, and then afterwards, everyone would just be filled in based off of where their current positionings were. For that second drawing, the Utah Hockey Club had a 1.5% chance of making that jump to the number 4 pick. And it happened. I was sitting there in the studio watching the television with one of our video producers, Matt Glade, and we got a little excited. And for those of you that saw the video of me recording it on the television, you could actually hear Matt's voice just, we got it. And even though it wasn't shown on the actual screen itself through the recording, there was a big old grin on my face because not only is that great for the team, a very unexpected gift to the team, but that means that it's going to make our jobs so much more fun. We get to look into more prospects. And in this draft, based off of what I've seen, these are guys that could change your whole franchise probably 2, 3 years out from now. So when you're looking at guys like that, you get a little excited, whether you're a fan of the team or not. It's been phenomenal. But the chances of both the Islanders and the Utah Hockey Club moving up as much as they did, it was less than a 0.01% chance of that even happening, which, again, mind blowing. In a brand new format, seeing it all live, but people are still heavily convinced that the whole thing was rigged. Don't know how you could rig that, uh, the ball drop and all that, but some people say it's still rigged. I just have faith, hope. Hopefully, not all the luck was used on the hockey club, so then the Jazz can hopefully get that number one overall pick. But as we get to a close, I'm sure as you've been watching, you've been noticing, what's this? What's this? What's that? Um, the Utah Hockey Club this morning at 8 a.m. Mountain Time, they decided to drop a bomb on everyone and announce the name. Zero warning. There wasn't even like a note saying, hey, there's going to be a press conference leading up to this. No hush hush sort of deal. It was just bam, here's a video on our socials on Instagram, TikTok, X, whatever you can find them on. Video dropped. You saw about 2.5 minutes of our friend Mike Falta just talking about the Utah Mammoth and how, it's really incorporating the culture and the environment of the state of Utah, but there's so many different things that are incorporated in it. So, it got my blood pumping. I got super excited. I'm normally not, you know, awake and alert at 8 a.m., but this morning I just had a feeling. So the announcement happens, and next thing you know, the organization, they send out DMs to influencers, they send out press releases to media, and just that's when I realized I'm like, oh shoot, this is like a real thing. Like I didn't realize that it was gonna be like this. Um, and thankfully, I'm friends with a lot of the influencers that were asked to come up there, like our friends Brandon. Y'all know him as Broccoli Brandon, Utah Hockey Club, uh, Jackie Johnson or Nacho Loves Puck, um, Ashley Brewer, Hey Ash tweeted, and then the man that got me this merch, Ryan Reynolds, not the man that looks good in a red suit, but the man that has a bigger heart than the Grinch after it's grown 3 sizes too big. And his handle is at Ryefish65. Um, I was being super like thankful and grateful for him. I was just like, hey, if they got a black hat and a puck, I'll be happy. Um, and he was like, oh, okay, here's all the options. I was like, okay, just black hat, puck, happy. And he's like, you want a t-shirt? I was like, no, I don't want to take advantage of your kindness. He was like, what size are you? So I was very happy that he was able to do that for me, and got to meet his children and go to his lovely home to pick up all this stuff before I did any sort of recordings today. So again, Ryan, thank you so much for allowing me to grow my endless closet of Utah sports merch, which I probably miss spring cleaning, but we'll make it happen so we have more room for Utah Mammoth attire as the season starts. um, but there were a lot of really great things that were said throughout the day, uh, which our friend Cole Bagley, he was there and he got some really great quotes. He asked an amazing question to the panel, which was Ryan and Ashley Smith and Gary Bettman. Um, but some things that really stood out is it was asked that the outdoor game has kind of been brought up a decent amount of times. Now, what's the progression on that sort of thing? And the answer from Commissioner Bettman was, I believe that we can pull all the things together that need to be pulled together, which vague answer, but you know, probably wasn't anticipating that. But he then followed it up with, just up the road, there's a nice stadium. Speaking of Rice Eccles Stadium for the University of Utah, we have to schedule these things a little bit in advance, but it's on our radar. So, since it's on their radar, they've already announced the stadium series and winter series for the upcoming season. Does that mean that maybe we'll see it for the 2026-27 season? Who knows? That is what my expectation and anticipation will be. So once those conversations start coming back up, I'm going to be super stoked, especially with the University of Utah just being a drive and a skip away. I would love to watch a game in that stadium. But another funny thing that came up too is that Ryan Smith, he just kept on talking about how Utah will show up no matter what. He wasn't worried that the NHL wouldn't work because Utah sports fans show up for their teams, win or lose. And he even joked around, just, oh man, there's just so many press conferences. Hopefully, we're near the end of them. But he did joke, Ryan Smith, that when we, Utah Hockey Club, Utah Mammoth, win the Stanley Cup, it'll be really nice to etch the name in there and we'll have you back. And Commissioner Bettman said, when you win the Stanley Cup, I hope I'm still here to present it to you. So there's a lot of excitement from the NHL side, from the ownership, from the Utah Mammoth, which that's going to take a while to get used to. But overall, I think it was a pretty successful year for the Utah Hockey Club. I mean, every single game was sold out, all 41 home games, even with the obstructed seating. People were wanting to fill that arena just to say that they were there. For all the people that purchased Utah Hockey Club merchandise, they don't feel like they're out of the money that they spent because of the new name, because, it's a part of history. And, down the line, you can just say that I was there for the inaugural season, and you can show that to your kids, your grandkids, and it will still hold its sentimental value. And then you'll have the current merchandise, like the ones that I'm wearing now, say that was the first iteration of the brand new name transitioning from the temporary Utah Hockey Club era to the Utah Mammoth era. So I really hope for the fans that did purchase the merchandise from the Utah Hockey Club, don't see it as a waste, see it as a sentimental investment. Or shoot, if you're going to get rid of it now, maybe it's a monetary investment and people just want to stock up on historical items. I'm keeping everything I purchased because if I tallied up how much money I spent, I would probably cry. But one of the big things that came out of the merchandise was a first look at the brand new sweaters for the team, which once I saw them, I was immediately a fan. And they kind of teased it a little bit leading into it, but they changed the font, which is still a little weird for me, to be honest. I thought that maybe they would keep the same font, but they still have on their away sweaters Utah in the diagonal format. And I just realized I did the wrong way. It's this way, not that way. The numbering is the font is different for the numbering, and on the shoulders it has the Mammoth logos instead of where the inaugural patch is. And one of the big things that Ryan Smith said is that when people, recognize that it's the Utah Hockey Club and you are from Utah, he wants Utah to be on the chest for anyone that's on the road, recognize that this is a Utah team, and even mention like Tusks Up. He wants that to essentially be like a roll tide type of thing. And he's actually trying to lean into that specifically because he wants people to recognize that this is such a strong fan base, no matter where you are, whether you are in Salt Lake City, if you are down in Miami or, making your way up to Minneapolis, he wants every Utah fan. If you say Tusks up, you know exactly where you're from and you know immediately who your fans are. Um, but there were a lot of really great things that went on. And even before Ryan Smith passed off the mic to Commissioner Bettman, he jokingly thanked him for the number 4 pick. And Bettman responded with, we'll get to that in the moment. And it led to him saying that good things happen to good people. So now it's a lot of positivity coming into the organization. And, the sweaters themselves, it's already a success in my brain just because even like with the black sweaters, you have the full Mammoth logo on the chest, which is a little more close to the format of everyone else's sweaters having their logo on their chest. Um, which even breaking down the logo itself, you can see the state of Utah right there, and you can even see a very subtle M for Mammoth. You have the tusk representing the U, and then the mountain concept right here. It is the exact same mountains that they have for the Utah Jazz branding. So it's a very close to home type of rebrand. So it's super exciting to see that all of that representation can be put into one singular logo. Now, as far as the sales for those jerseys, they didn't give us an exact date, but they did give us a time frame. And that time frame is before the NHL draft, which is on June 27th. So if you're looking at your calendar right now, you're looking at about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6.5 weeks at a maximum for when those sweaters will be available. But for those of you who are unable to make their way to the Delta Center to purchase the merchandise, there was a bunch still there when I was in the vicinity around 6 p.m. Mountain Time today. But my anticipation is that with the construction, they probably won't have the store open like they did today. I feel like it was probably just for the press conference. I could be wrong. You could always check their social media. The one that they are more active on is going to be Instagram. So the Utah Hockey Club team store. Check on their story, and most likely you will have an answer at the beginning of the day around 9 a.m. Mountain Time. But if you are unable to make your way to the Delta Center, that same merchandise will also be available on the NHL shop website starting on May 14th. I don't know what the delivery date is looking like for those at the moment, but that allows fans who aren't local to be able to have their new Utah Mammoth merchandise, which I'm super excited. I know for my family back home in Jacksonville, even though they have their Utah Hockey Club gear that they wear with pride, I'm sure that they are anxiously waiting to get their new Mammoth gear. But man, after speaking for all of that, it seemed like there was so much that happened. And then I look at the time and I notice that we're only at about 30 minutes. So I like to call that a successful episode. So with that, we will be signing off. This is your Bean on the Scene. I am Alma Bean, and y'all enjoy the rest of your